Cheers, guys. Here we are in Islay.
Cheers.
Brilliant. First time in Islay, Chuck. How you feeling?
Good. I'm more awake than I was on the way here, certainly.
Yeah, well, we are technically now 12 hours into our Islay trip because we left the house. Well, I picked you up at 5:15 this morning. It's now going just after 5:10 in the evening. The sun is shining down on us, lacquered up in sunscreen at Kilchoman Distillery. Right, Angus, you know what to do. Clap us in. Welcome along to the Whisky Stories podcast with myself, Graham Colgar, and we are not in the Athletic Arms. We are not in Diggers, and you can maybe hear, or if you're watching, you can see. No, we are outside a distillery on Islay. We are at Kilchoman Distillery. Angus, we've done it again. We've managed to convince people to bring us to their distillery and give us lots and lots of free whiskey. How do we do it?
I don't know. It's you that organises it, Graham, so I have no idea how we do it. But yeah, we're outside. If you can hear anything in the background, that is production noise.
Production's going on behind us.
That is Kilchoman being made in real time.
It's literally been made behind us. Well, it's being made as fast as we're drinking it.
Absolutely. We've been around, we've had a tour of the distillery. Fantastic Islay took us around.
Yeah.
Took us around the farm, took us to Macaire Bay, sampled a few of your whiskies on the way.
Yeah.
So we've had a tremendous afternoon.
And for the second time on this podcast history, we've had to get a ferry to a distillery. Albeit the last ferry that we got before today was that tiny little 12-minute one that you had to get to Terroir.
Yeah.
But this time we had a full Scottish breakfast on the ferry. And Chuck, this is your first time on Islay. How are you feeling?
It is. I'm good. I mean, I'm running on an hour's sleep. So I did not sleep last night. I was so excited. It was like Christmas. But no, I'm good, man. I'm more awake than I have been all day.
Yeah, no, Angus did mention that we were taken round the distillery by Islay. Some people might have been wondering, what the hell are you talking about? The distillery manager here at Kilchoman Distillery is called Islay. He is named after the island. So
he's named after his dad.
Well, he's named after his dad, who is also
Islay
called
Junior, technically.
Islay Junior, yeah. But a local man, a man who's spent his whole life living on the island, a man called Islay that works as a distillery manager on a distillery in Islay. You couldn't get it more.
His dad was a distillery manager as well.
His dad worked at Lagavulin for over 30 years as well. But we are joined by, now, sales and marketing man. I've got it written down here. We've got James Wills. James, how are you?
Good.
A man with no official job title.
Well, I don't know. Job title. It pigeonholes me a bit. So,
Yeah.
I like to think I'm, capable of painting the walls, filling the malt, selling the odd bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, right. You're
Jack of all trades.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I would normally say welcome to the Whisky Stories podcast, but you're welcoming us into the distillery because now, as well as being sales and marketing man, as I've written down here, you're actually the son of Anthony Wills, who is the owner and founder of the distillery. So you're a hands-on kind of chap on the island, on the distillery here.
Yeah. Well, I've been here since day one, really. Not necessarily doing important things.
Yeah.
I was here.
How old are you?
I'm 39.
39.
And
right.
the distillery was built when I was 18.
So, wow. Right. Okay. I mean, yeah. Mum and Dad build a distillery whilst you're 18, and then you get do you want to work for the family business, son? Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually my younger brother has worked his entire life.
Really?
Dad. He never had another job. I at least have worked for like one or two other people.
Yeah. Did they send you out to other distilleries to get your apprenticeship? Or
no, I actually worked for I did a business marketing degree at uni, and then I thought, well, I want to get into the booze industry, but I don't want to immediately work for my dad. So I worked for a company called Funkin.
Right. Okay.
And they make like fruit purees and stuff, so like bars, and they make like pre-mixed cocktails and stuff like that. So I've seen one end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And it's a bit more comfortable in many ways.
Yeah, because I mean, going back, so Kilchoman Distillery, I'm not quick enough to do the maths. That you're 39, it's 2026. And when did the Kilchoman Distillery? When did the building work actually start on this site?
So I think it was quite a quick build, but I think things started to kind of come together in 2003, 2004, and then
had your dad always had an ambition to open a distillery? Was that something he'd always wanted to do?
No, I mean, my dad's a bit of a like serial entrepreneur, right? Like, I don't think he'd necessarily describe himself to say. Hopefully, he doesn't listen to this and won't have to justify.
Well, he's working in whiskey, so technically he's a serial entrepreneur. Excuse the pun.
So he started off in wine, and he imported wine for a number of years in his early career, and then we moved up to Scotland about 35, 40 years ago.
Right.
Well, no, 35 years ago, and then he kind of moved into independent bottling of whiskey,
Right.
in the real kind of late 90s surge in interest for single malt.
Yeah.
And I remember barrels of Highland Park and Macallan and all this stuff like arriving at the house, and he was fairly small scale. But my mum.
Oh dear.
Got mixed up.
You can edit that bit out.
Yeah.
Your dad's wife.
My dad's wife is from Islay.
Right.
And so kind of when he kind of saw that boom in interest for single malt, having that connection to Islay and being quite a entrepreneurial spirit, he thought, I'm going to build a new distillery and I'm going to build it on Islay.
And
Fantastic.
back then, 2003, 2004, the new distillery scene on Islay. So you would have been this Kilchoman distillery.
Well, there was no new distillery scene on Islay.
What was the newest distillery before?
I think it was Brookladdy.
Yeah.
I think 1880.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
1881 maybe.
So a good 120 years.
a good chunk of time between. Yeah. So basically that was it. So so I take it with your mum living on the island, being from the island.
Yeah.
Family trips to the island regularly.
Yeah. So I have to
ties.
caveat it in case in case Islay listens to this.
Yeah.
Well, Kathy's not from Islay. She wasn't born and raised here.
Right.
But her family, the Wilkes side of my family, my mum's side of the family, they have spent a lot of time on Islay since the 40s.
Since the 40s. So there is a connection.
Yeah. So
what was
various parts have lived here full time, others haven't.
What was your dad's bottling, like independent bottling company? Was it just a case? Was it very similar? Like, well, we've spoken to Alex Bruce, of Arden Merkin, who Adelphi, and it was very similar in the 90s. He didn't take over till 2004.
No, and when he started, there
in the
was
90s.
3 casks and that sort of thing.
But was it literally getting your hands on, or your dad getting his hands on?
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't do now what he did then. Like, as
Sure.
you just don't have access to the stocks.
Yeah.
So when I say he was mainly bottling things like 30, 40-year-old Macallans and Highland Parks and, the big old established names, the first big brands in single malts. He was bottling those and then putting them in a fancy decanter and selling them in the Far East. That was kind of his mode. And it was called Liquid. I think he had 2 brands. One was Caledonian Selection.
Yeah.
Right. And one was, and maybe the umbrella company was Liquid Gold Enterprises.
Wow. Wow, there you go.
There you are.
So, he's ticking 2 boxes there with the names.
I think most of the stuff was bottled under Caledonian Selection.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember like as an 18-year-old, I was at boarding school and I remember like swiping bottles of like 30-year-old Macallan, and taking them into school and being like, everyone else had bottles of whatever else they'd stolen from their parents.
Dom Perignon.
Yeah, but that was a bit more palatable than these sort of cast strength whiskey that I had. Wouldn't be the same now. I'd probably my palate's been refined a bit. But.
So as a young lad, what like when you're sitting there 18 years old, 16, 17, 18 years old, and your parents are building a distillery.
Yeah.
Is that exciting at that age? I'm trying to think back, what I would be like at 18 and whether whiskey was on my radar as such, or whether it was just a case of, this is what my mum and dad are doing, and then there was a point in your life when you decided, actually, I want part of this.
Yeah, well, I think so. I was 18, and I was still very much in this sort of school mode.
Yeah.
Because I was an early 18-year-old, so I was thinking, I'll get through school, and then everyone's asking you what you're going to do, what you're going to do. And I thought, I'm going to go to university, I'll have a good time, and then I'll figure it out. And but it was exciting. It was more exciting. It was completely unknown.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know what was involved in building a distillery. My dad sat us down one day where we lived on the mainland, and I thought, Christ, who's died, who's pregnant, who's and he said, we're moving to Islay and I'm going to build a distillery, and that was pretty cool.
And your dad was at the forefront of that because obviously the Arran was kind of 1996.
Yeah.
You had Ben Romack as well being kind of re-established, but you were really, Kilchoman was at the forefront of the new distilleries that we've seen come up over the next kind of 20 years since yourself. So that was quite an enterprising thing to do. It was quite a brave thing to do, for your dad to say, right, there is this boom in single malt Scotch whiskey. I'm going to open a new distillery, which independently owned as well. You know, that's a remarkable thing to do, considering, you know, the powerhouse companies that own a lot of the distilleries in Scotland.
Yeah, I think he wasn't the only one thinking about it.
Sure.
You know, he would say that.
There were mutterings between
Yeah.
other people, right, we've
Yeah.
got ideas, planning,
Yeah,
et
and
cetera.
there was lots of sort of, but no one had really taken the dive and done it, you know. So
Sure.
he was very brave in that sense. You know, he was sometimes he says, "Yeah, stupid," you know. You didn't.
Well,
you know,
sometimes
so,
when you're doing
yeah.
these things, the element of ignorance is sometimes quite helpful, because the thing is, like, what you're like, all right, since Kilchoman has opened on Islay, how many other newer distilleries have popped up, and how many other, and how many more are still to come?
Yeah.
But to be the first of that, and there's always the worry of, well, is there a reason that nobody, in 120 years, is there a reason that nobody else has thought about this?
Well, I think the same applies now. You know, it's one thing saying you're going to build it. It's another thing building it, and then you got to run it, and then you got to sell the whiskey at the end of it. And over that time frame, it's a long period. You know, it's not like saying you're going to build an app and there's a big demand for an app, so you build the app and then the next day you sell it. You know, you're building something that there has to be a market for it in 10 years' time. And so that is the big obstacle, because you're not restarting an old distillery. So I remember Ardbeg, the guys at Ardbeg, and I remember one of their brand ambassadors saying, "Oh, we restarted Ardbeg, and big challenge because we only had 10,000 casks as well." You know, and it took us 10, 15 years to get to that point where we had 10,000 casks in the warehouse. So it's that period in the middle, and the biggest challenge I think now is if you don't knock it out the park with those first 2-3 bottlings that you bring to the market as a new distillery, you're almost forgotten. Because the next new distillery arrives, and
you're kind of yesterday's
When
chip
was the
paper.
first released by Kilchoman? Because it was Young Spirit you guys did. It was like 4 or 5 years old, if my memory serves.
So everything in the still house is set up for producing a good young spirit.
Yeah.
You know, so we had always had the intention. I say we, I had nothing to do with it. But,
Was Jim Swan involved?
yeah,
with
Jim
the-
Swan was very heavily involved. So my father would credit all of the the spirit quality to Jim. You know, my dad's a good delegator.
Yeah.
Right.
So he said to Jim, "Make me something that I can sell at 3 years old."
Yeah.
And so that was always the intention. You know, at that time as well, cask policy wasn't what it is now.
Yeah.
You know, so people were filling pretty ropey or less fresh cask than they are now.
Yeah.
You know, so these days a lot of distilleries will be filling a lot of fresh cask, and back then it would have been a much smaller part of the.
Because new distilleries, we've talked about this on the pod before, where new distilleries have really sprung up in the last 10, 15 years. But when you go back, there wasn't. There was a lot of conversations. There was a lot of talking about new distilleries
And there was
in the early 2000s.
reopening of distilleries as well. But I guess what was different about the actual opening of a new distillery, I get the impression your dad maybe is quite a principled man. He knows what he wants in a distillery. I mean, maybe.
And also,
I'm just getting that from conversation.
Just another point as well. When you said your dad's really good at delegation, it was supposed to be him that was coming on the podcast.
That's a very good point.
Case in point.
Yeah, but the single farm ethos,
Yeah.
I take it that was always a big part of what he wanted to do. And it wasn't a case of, I want to find a distillery. It was a case of I want to find a distillery, but I want it to do one thing, two things, this, that, and the next.
Well, you
Do
can
know what
never
I mean?
you can never accuse my dad of being like sort of wavering on decisions.
Yeah.
Right.
You have a discussion, the decision's made.
Yeah.
So he decided he wanted to build a distillery in Islay. He decided he wanted to do it a bit differently.
Yeah.
He didn't want to just build another distillery that made peated Islay whiskey.
Sure.
So that's where the whole farm aspect of what we do.
Is there what's the other? Is there any other distillery on Islay that's doing something like Bruichladdich? Are they a little bit?
Bruichladdich do a lot of. Bruichladdich do a lot of their. They do an
Small
Islay.
batch barley,
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah, I mean,
Islay
arguably
barley
we're the
release.
only people. Here we go. We'll really wind some folk up here, but arguably we're the only people in Scotland who do what we do.
Right.
Because we grow the barley.
Yes.
We do it.
Yeah.
We control
It's
it.
not a third party.
Yeah,
It is yourself. You've got full control over.
Yeah, we
what's
malt it.
going
You
in
malt
the
it.
ground.
You know, we bottle it. Those are
Yeah.
the three key areas that other people do, and maybe the barley comes from one farm, or maybe the normally what happens is, so the rules behind, not the rules, but the definition of a farm distillery these days is as loose as the barley comes from one farm.
Yeah.
Whereas what we do is we grow it on our farm, we malt it on our farm. We mature it here, we bottle it.
Yeah, so everything
No one
on
else.
site.
no
But
one
not
else
because
does.
for
But
example,
not everything that you
No.
do use third party barley, and it is malted elsewhere. But we had earlier today when Islay took us round Rockside.
Rockside, yeah.
I'll say this: we've
Yes.
talked about sitting or standing in a warehouse drinking whiskey that's come from the cask. We've never stood in a field of barley
Until
drinking
today.
until today, drinking a dram that has 100% come from the barley. Standing in a field, drinking a dram, which is from the barley in that field that will go into it. And when you're over that building, like for people that are watching, it's literally maybe 500 yards away from us, maybe, and that's what that is.
But this might be a good point to introduce
Yeah,
what
what
we're
we're
drinking.
drinking.
We've got whiskey in our glasses.
And
so-
also for people that are watching this going, why was Graham on his phone earlier? It is Friday afternoon. It is just going 5:30. I'm just on weekend dram roll call. So
right.
if you were putting the weekend dram roll call in, and it was a Kilchoman Islay Farm Distillery family collection, 11-year-old, you saw the picture of that was taken during a recording. So what is this then, James? This family collection then.
So these are a collection of 4 releases, which are each kind of a vatting of less than 5. Well, sorry, not less than 5. 5 to 10 casks.
Right.
And last year, I don't know how to explain this. So yeah, these will be available. These 4 releases will be available in about a week or two's
So
time.
by the time this podcast episode will go out a week on Thursday. Next Thursday,
Yeah.
sorry.
So these will be available online on your own website, I take it?
Not on our own website.
Not on your own website.
The
right.
allocations are very tight. So
Okay.
this kind of filters into like a discussion about our stock profile.
Okay.
So we basically have 80% of our stock in terms of barrels in the warehouse is less than 6 years old.
Okay.
And then beyond that, we have spread over sort of, 10, 15 years. We have a lot of, years where we have 10 casks, where we have 50 casks, where we have, and anything in between. So these family collections going forward will be our selection of the best of those older stocks.
There's a 20-year-old somewhere. The range goes, so we're on the 11.
Well,
just now.
let's talk about the one we're drinking
Yeah.
now, and then we can introduce the others. So
So this is an 11-year-old sherry cask maturation.
Oh, yeah.
So sherry butts, bottled at cask strength, 53.7.
different kinds of sherry in this.
No.
Or-
One of the things we do with our cask selection is that we're quite uncomplicated.
Right.
We quite like, I say we again, it's really my dad. I often say that Kilchoman is not a democracy, it's a dictatorship.
Benevolent dictator.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
But you
called the
can-
family collection. So
Yeah, you're in the family.
Yeah.
So your dad told you what he was doing.
Well, sometimes we just go into the warehouse and we'll just taste through loads of it.
Yeah.
And so quite often we'll identify good little batches of casks during that process, and that filters into what is then selected for these collections.
But then, so it's not a mix of sherry then, is it?
No, it's a mix of casks,
Yeah.
but all Oloroso.
Oloroso
Yeah.
sherry. Lovely.
Yeah,
Very
so
nice.
Oloroso butts.
And at 11 years old, and that is something. Look, I make no apologies for it. Is Ross will sit here, Ross who does the podcast with us, and Ross has sat here and said, I pretend to like peated whiskey. Because when we first started the podcast, I did not like peated whiskey. And Kilchoman's played a big part on our whiskey journey, really.
Absolutely.
Dominantly
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. Sanaig was a huge kind of gateway dram for me.
Yeah.
When I was getting into whiskey, Sanaig was a bottle that, or Sanaig was a dram that I kind of found and latched onto. That combination of peat and sherry at that time really did it for me. I remember going to the Wildcat in Edinburgh with you, Graham, and ordering a Sanaig, and when we first started kind of ordering whiskey at bars, and that was Sanaig was a real go-to for me. Yeah, absolutely.
I probably agree. For me as well, it was probably one of the first heavily peated spirits that I really got into, because I struggled with peat initially as well. And I think from working in bars and stuff, it was one of the first new distilleries that when the first release came out, it like nailed it.
Yeah.
Like there was, I mean, I don't want to say anything negative about any other distilleries, but there's been quite a few releases from a distillery. The first release, you've been like, okay. But with the Kilchoman stuff, like the Maccabee and the Snake, when they came out, they're like, that's a fully formed whiskey right from the get-go. And just nailed it. And
Well,
I don't know if that's good word selection and peat maybe masking some of that immaturity.
Well, as I say, like the cut points and what we do in the still house is very important. Do you taste our new mate?
We
We
put it on our
had
hands.
it on our hands.
Okay,
We didn't have
yeah.
glasses.
I licked it off Angus's fingers.
Exactly.
Lovely.
Your finger looking good, yeah.
I caught it all on video.
But the new make sets the foundation.
Yeah.
You know, and then you can with Sanig, what you're talking about there is like a heavily sherry influence, you know, young. But what we managed, our spirit, and particularly like the heavier peated spirit, it has a vibrancy to it, where you take some really active casks and you can offset that vibrancy, and yet there's no kind of roughness to it. You know, there's no like raw, dainty, or not too much as a young whiskey. So.
I suppose we had when we were at Maccabee, we had the Maccabee cast strength.
Yeah,
that was about 58%.
Yeah, people listen to that. I don't know what we sound like right now.
Yeah,
in my
that's
head,
very
we
true.
sound okay, but
Yeah.
people might be listening to this going, bloody hell, they had a good kick in the
but-
ball because
The
Isla's pours and measures were very
If
good.
anyone wants a value for money in a whiskey experience, book onto Isla's farm tour.
Honestly, but that was a
that-
cast strength
Well,
whiskey.
that was 58% and no burn, incredibly drinkable.
Incredible.
And again,
Well,
non-age as
English.
well. So,
Yeah.
but so the Kilchoman then for me, I can go back to a story where Angus and I we looked at this podcast and started the podcast where we didn't know anything about whiskey. And what we used to do is Angus lived on one side of Diggers at Athletic Arms where you normally record, and I lived on the other side. And we used to meet up and we go to Diggers. And I remember it was actually, I don't know if you remember this.
Probably not.
It was after
He's got better memory than me.
Scotland and Australia had just played at rugby.
Oh, right, I do remember this.
And it was a Sunday.
yes.
And we didn't go to the rugby, but we went to Diggers and it was quieter because the rugby was on, and then the place started to fill up.
Yeah.
And what we used to do is we would buy, I would say, oh, I'm looking at this, I quite like Glendronach. No one's ever heard of Glendronach. Have you heard of Glendronach? Because it wasn't a core range kind of thing. That wasn't the sort of one of the bigger brands. Sherried, heavily sherried, that was the thing. Angus has said, well, there's a distillery in Islay called Kilchoman. I said, I've never heard of Kilchoman. I know Ardbeg, I know Bunaravan and all that. Never heard of Kilchoman. Angus said to Snake, you bought a Snake for me and yourself. Right. And I was like, how can anyone drink this stuff? Right? And I remember there was an Australian guy where we were sat in Diggers. There was an Australian guy at the bar. He went, I can smell that whiskey over here, right? And I just remember being like, ugh, like peated whiskey. But to think now, that would have been 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We sat at Kilchoman Distillery, sitting there drinking Drams. But one of the things that always not frustrated me, but I always wondered, is why did Kilchoman always stick to the non-age statement
For a long, long time.
for a very long time? Now, I think I now know the answer from some of the conversations we've had with other people and other brands.
Yeah.
But it is a commitment to suddenly go, we are going to not follow the trend too much and stick age statement whiskey out, which we know from a marketing perspective, some people
you're
do.
assuming we had the choice there.
Well, yeah, right.
Because there surely must have been a temptation when you turn 10-year-old, right, we're going to have a core range 10. Now when we turn 15, we're going to have a core range 15. You know,
I think
this
there's,
is
well,
the blueprint.
now, you know, we've gone through a real phase in the whiskey industry now when age statements have been important. You know, it was all about age statement 30, 40 years ago. There was no other sort of differentiation. Then age statement became almost kind of out the window altogether.
Yeah.
You know, Ardbeg doing all sorts of non-age statement stuff that was as popular, and Highland Park selling non-age statement stuff for very, very high prices. You know, so that was accepted for a period, and now we're kind of moving back.
Yeah.
And we're just fortunate that, well, we kind of sat in that period and we didn't have lots of stocks of old whiskey at that time when age statements were very accepted.
So rather than moving with the times have moved with you almost. That when, you know, like you said, there was this kind of proliferation of non-age whiskey. You were there with your quite young whiskey.
Yeah.
And then now age statements are kind of, we're seeing more of them, you know, think of like Scapa going back to having the 10 and the 16 rather than the 2 non-age. You're there with kind of, you know, you fit an age on Lochgone for the first time a couple of years ago. which is, you know, again, it's quite interesting that you've done that as a decision, but previously not having done that. So
It's also, as I say, it comes down to stocks.
Yeah,
When we started, we were producing 50,000 litres of alcohol a year.
Yeah.
You know, which is nothing.
yeah,
You know,
well,
like-
this is it. We've seen in the still house how you've expanded your production.
Well, you got
itself,
two
so-
double. You've basically replicated the first
Yeah.
still house to. You've got effectively got two still houses in one room. It's
Yeah.
quite, and there will be a
So
vlog.
You went into that little first where there's the washbacks, the 4 washbacks.
Yeah.
So that's what we started with.
Yeah.
2 stills, 4 little washbacks.
And now you've got 14 washbacks.
Yeah,
So
exactly,
it's
yeah.
like that gives a kind of idea of how much you've expanded.
And this is the thing. There's an element of me sometimes looking back, and I try not to be apologetic for it, because there are people out there who hold the exact same thoughts and beliefs that I had literally 3 years ago before we started doing the podcast.
Yeah.
And this podcast has been a complete journey of enlightenment, you could say, from because I would have been very critical 2 years ago of Kilchoman and me, like, why are they not putting just age statement stuff out? That's silly. And then it wasn't until we did the Tamnavulin work, the stuff we did with Tamnavulin, celebrate their 60th anniversary and what have you, and asking them, saying like, why do you not have age statement stuff out? And they're like, we would like to have age statement stuff out, and there might be stuff on the horizon. But I just said, like, the distillery was mothballed and reopened after, when did it reopen? It was like 20, yeah. Anyway,
Well,
they just said,
but
so it's just a case of,
There's also a key point that it's our 10-year-old Loch Orm is I tasted one that was a 6-year-old Loch Orm a couple of days ago. It's not,
just good liquid.
Yeah, it's good. Like Maccabe's good, Saneg's very good.
Yeah,
And so Saneg's a good example, because we're talking at the moment about, okay, well, yeah, shall we move that to an age statement? But
right.
people love it as it is, and so if we change it, the liquid changes by putting.
Well, you
that
suddenly
age.
lose the
But,
element.
I mean, even since day one, when you well, not day one, but the first day you release it, that has changed, presumably, because again, I think with Kilchoman as well, there's almost a bit, you know, when you speak to whiskey drinkers, there's almost a wee bit of a mythology about Saneg and Maccabe. It was like, oh, it's got older since they first released. You know, every year it's got a wee bit older, and you can tell there's older stuff in it. I don't know if that's true or not, but
Well, it is true. Yeah.
I'm sure it is.
But only a little bit older.
But I think people do like that as well. That you know, and I think whether you go to an age statement or not, there's an appreciation that although they aren't age statements, that they have grown along with the distillery itself. And
There's like a mystique to batch releases as well.
Yeah.
Like,
of course.
people be like, oh man, batch 2019 first batch was fantastic.
Yeah.
When you start reading lot numbers on,
absolutely.
you're in too deep.
But then on this
I've
side of
also
things,
read
with
it
this
and
range,
read it,
right?
Yeah.
With this range, then, so for people who see Kilchoman and who have followed the Kilchoman journey, suddenly now people are going to go, now there is the chance.
Well,
So-
now you know, there's a 20-year-old, there's an 18-year-old.
which is huge. To suddenly be able to add that to the portfolio, and from your position as sales and marketing man,
I hate the title. Yes, sir. It's like, but I can't get away with anything else,
but like that helps, because that really just opens up now. Because there will be, and it's wrong because we always talk about it, flavor forward, flavor first.
Yeah.
But there, like, people will suddenly go, and there will be people that go, never really known much about Kilchoman, but to see a 20-year-old whiskey on suddenly going, I had no idea Kilchoman's been around, and there will still people who probably remember Kilchoman and going, God, has that been 20 years already? And suddenly that just adds to an arsenal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's quite surprising. I know from when I was working bars, it was always like, oh, so this is like the old kid of the new kids on the block. And then you're like 21 years ago, really now. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. Are you at school?
No, you're the old kid.
Yeah. That's a substantial time.
Are you still at the back of the whiskey yearbook, or does that graduate?
Oh yeah, we're shunted forward now. So
you actually,
we're not in the,
you're not in the new distillery anymore.
I did actually notice that last.
Really?
Last one, we're not.
Is that from the last edition?
There you go. So 2026 yearbook.
Graduated.
Yeah, well done. That's fantastic.
Well, I mean, that's partly why we are doing more age statements now, because there are a lot of new distilleries, and we kind of want to say we're not.
You want to
we're not
separate
doing
yourself
that.
from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
ones that
Not-
are coming
That
online.
makes it sound.
Yeah.
No, but because it does make people. I mean, there'll be there'll be people that enter whiskey at any point, and they'll see the brands that they know. They'll go Islay, and they'll rattle through, like what I was saying earlier on. They'll be able to rattle through distilleries on Islay. They'll go, that's heritage distilleries. That's brands you always associate with Islay. and then they'll see someone like that, yourselves and other brands, and go, oh, they must be fairly new. You've never really heard of them. But to go, well, that 20 odd years is that's a lot longer than a lot of other new distilleries. Which one of we? What one would you recommend next?
I mean, you can taste them in the order. The next one is from Rockside Barley. So this is
Right. Okay. So let's try it. So have you personally had a bit of a hand in picking these casks?
Yeah, I mean, I say he's a dictator. I mean, he is kind of a dictator, but you can always have some influence. On my dad.
Yeah. Your signature is there, James.
Yeah.
So,
I think, to be honest, I probably haven't been. You have to taste a lot of casks to kind of warrant having an opinion to a certain extent. So, but I feel now confident enough.
Well,
tasting through the warehouse and saying this is a good cask. This is not a good cask.
So this is 14 years old.
Yeah.
So it's from Rockside Barley then.
Yeah. So there have been some releases that we've done in the past, but I have So the whiskey we make from barley we grow here will now be called like Rockside releases. Rockside Barley, they always have that the pale label on them.
So so Rockside being
Rockside being the farm.
Right.
So this is Rockside Farm that Distillery.
So the farm is known as Rockside Farm.
Yeah. Half of what you thought everyone else. That's when.
And this is 14-year-old. What kind of cask makeup are we looking at?
This is bourbon barrels.
This is all bourbon barrels.
Yeah. Predominantly.
Brilliant.
This is my style. Yeah.
Now I have to say, Rockside
mostly fresh.
That
The
Rockside
11-year-old.
So the Rockside 11, right, is going to be an age statement core release, and it's 50 odd. What did they?
55 pounds.
Brilliant.
46%. That shocked me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was a cracking whiskey, and if I'm being honest, we arrived at our digs, which are putting us up on the distillery, in a lovely cottage, and absolutely fantastic location and setting. And we did see there was a nice wee selection of Kilchoman there, and we thought, well, we've arrived, we might as well have a dram. And that was the one we actually picked. The Rockside one was the one that we picked out for that, and it was the perfect dram. If you've had how many hours of traveling? 6 hours, 7 hours of traveling.
We did look out through those big windows on that field and think, that's come from there. And that is quite special.
It does. Well, you can see the whole lot there from there. You see across the malt floor. You see the steam coming out of the storehouse.
Now you yourself, have you done every job in this distillery?
That's good.
Have you lent your hand to everything here?
I have at some time.
Yeah.
So the processes do change. You're about to test me and sort of. I mean, I've worked pot washing in the cafe. I've spilt soup on people's.
Yeah, really.
I've worked in the malt floor in the still house. When I worked in the still house, I was probably like 19. I didn't have the patience for it.
Yeah,
I was terrible stillman.
Really?
Those cut points were really quick, right?
Well, you just have to, when you're distilling, you just have to distill. Whereas when you're like a 19-year-old, sort of jumping this way and that, thinking you can do two jobs at the same time, you can't. And I wasn't very good at that. And then warehousing and.
How are you with the maltings then?
Malting's good. I enjoy the malting because it's.
And the furnace and all that, the kiln. How are you with that?
Well, we burnt that one down. But it's been rebuilt.
Right, so we were. This is a loaded question.
Story.
I was asked to say, make sure you ask, because I said, I think we're getting one of the sons that's doing the what is coming with us, and someone said, well, ask him about the time he burnt down the kiln.
Yeah. Well, this is when I was probably a teenager at the time. Dad was 2 years into building his distillery, paying the bills on his credit card and employing his kids at, well below minimum wage. And one of the jobs we were put in charge was the malting. So like, the peating and then the drying is a particularly shit job.
Right.
And at the time, we had the smaller kiln, which is just behind us, but people who are listening won't be able to see it. But it's the kiln is where we dry the barley. Well, we first smoke it and then we dry it. These days we use an air drying system. But back in 2008, I think it was, we burnt coal.
Right.
Which was awful because you had to go up onto the kiln floor, which is basically like stood on top of a barbecue.
Yeah.
And you turn the barley that's on the floor. It's like 50 degrees and the barley dust is awful.
Yeah.
So you had to do that. And we were malting through the weekend and, my dad's English, my mum's Scottish, England playing Scotland. In the rugby, it was a big deal. And me and my younger brother, Peter, we didn't want to have to go back halfway through the game.
Right.
So we built a slightly larger than normal coal fire, and we thought, oh, well, that'll do the job. I'll be fine. We can watch a full game and then come back, and it won't be out. So we got halfway through the second half, and the Islay Fire Brigade called up and said, we got reports of some smoke coming out of the kiln. And we were like, what are you guys fucking talking about? Of course there's smoke coming out of the kiln.
It's a kiln.
Fucking idiots. But no, there's a bit more smoke than normal.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a picture inside there of the kiln when it burnt.
Right.
And it was a bad day.
That was
Bad day. Tough day for my dad because England lost as well.
Oh. So anyway, on that release, what do you think the PPM will actually be on that? God.
Well, that was, I'm not sure it was usable. It was all gone. But luckily, it was actually, quite contained. Everyone on the island was saying it was an insurance job.
There you go.
Saying, Anthony, he didn't have the money. They were struggling. And
So you got his sons to build it now.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I want to ask is we were very kindly driven around in a Land Rover.
Oh, yeah, it was running, was it?
It was running absolutely fine. Now, it's plastered in different countries all over Europe and things like that. Now, we were told that this is a Land Rover that was used for the European
Tour. Yeah.
European tour. Now, you were part of that as well?
Yeah. Well, we've done these European tours for like 10, 12 years now.
Right.
Ever since I started working at the Distillery, it was my first, big marketing idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Dad, let me drive a Land Rover right across Europe.
So you got a marketing degree. What are you going to market? And so I said, oh, well, how about we, buy a Land Rover and me and Pete or George, my other brother, will drive it through Europe and we'll do some events and see what happens.
That'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that, and it was 12 weeks, and we did 12 weeks, and it was like 12 countries, 8 or 9 weeks.
Right.
Which is
Are you
back-to-back.
visiting other whiskey festivals and things like that?
It was just a tasting event.
just tasting events yourselves, yeah.
It was quite good, and then we've kind of done it every year since.
Yeah. Now, but Land Rover has a
Yeah.
family connection as well, though, and a connection to the local area as well.
Yeah. You'll see like a lot of old Land Rovers driving around on Islay, and there's local sort of a Land Rover club and stuff. So my mum's grandfather, my great grandfather, he was a guy called Spencer Wilkes, and he was the managing director of the Rover Company coming out of the Second World War. And he and his brother Morris, they looked at the Willis Jeep and said, well, there's a market for that in the UK, So they would adapt Rovers. Like the early models of Land Rovers were these Rovers. And so my great grandfather would drive these up. And, the name Land Rover comes from him driving up one of these original early prototypes and showing it to his gamekeeper. And the gamekeeper said, oh, well, that will be a Land Rover, will it? And so then the Land Rover name, born on Islay.
So it was a gamekeeper on Islay that coined the Land Rover name.
Yeah.
So wait, right. So hang on a second.
A brand that goes around the world.
So your great grandfather was the founder.
Well, he and his brother.
Him and
so
his brother.
He was the MD. My great grandfather was the MD, and his brother was the sort of head engineer, director, whatever you want.
And then a gamekeeper on Islay just said, well, if that's a Rover, then this one's going over cross country. This will be a Land Rover.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah, and that was it. Yeah, and they said,
Bloody
that's
hell.
a good name.
And so that's the family connection on your. That's
a
your
million
mother's
Land
side.
Rovers later.
Yeah, that's on your mother's side of the
That's my
family.
mother's side. Yeah, so, they were involved early on. They're not. We're not like Tata Steel billionaires. That's it.
Or you think?
But they're still very passionate about Land Rovers and Islay, so you see a lot. And,
Yeah.
you
nice
see the plaques
connection,
that say like "Born on Islay" or something.
Really?
These little,
I mean, it's so cool. And to be able to be driven around. So Islay, the distillery manager, drove us around the land, drove us around a wee bit of Islay and took us to the fields and took us to Macker Bay and things like that. And every release, because that was the other thing, is the releases all have names of the local areas and stuff like that. So what will happen when you start running out?
Further and further. Yeah, eventually.
Colin say, I was thinking more.
I might maybe get off and do better actually. Yeah.
The burnt down kiln release. But when you look at how far Kilchoman then travels around the world, you've talked about going around Europe on the Land Rover and things like that. But how far and wide does Kilchoman actually go?
I think about 50 or 60 countries. Everywhere from Kazakhstan to Malta to Uruguay.
Really?
every corner of the world. I mean, it's the really like sort of not surprising, but proud thing about like Islay whiskies and Scotch whiskey is you can go to a bar in the middle of nowhere and there will be a bottle of Scotch whiskey on the back bar. Yeah.
And how challenging is that for you to go to these countries and say, Kilchoman, because I'm assuming that when you start that sales role, you're going to people, you explain maybe Islay whiskey, and someone will go, oh yeah, like Beaumont, or like everyone, and like that, and you go,
that's a big help. Like, because Beaumont and Lagavulin have been there and they've told them all about Islay whiskey. They've told them about peat and this mystical Islay off the west coast of Scotland.
So it's almost like they've told the story. You can say, well, that is part of our story as well. But look, we do it like this. We're a single farm, etc., etc.
Exactly.
So it's almost a kind of piggybacking, but equally, it's like, look what we're adding to the story.
It is absolutely unashamed piggyback.
So that is the lean in sale point.
I mean, the number of times I say in a year, well, we don't have the big wallets of Lagavulin and Roy and that lot. So you just you lowball them like that.
And you spend a lot of time on the island then, as well as so you're not an inhabitant of Islay all around the year.
No, my wife's not ready for a winter on Islay. She's it. We spend a lot of time here in the summer, so we come for the whole of the summer holidays. Yes, of school and everything, but summer on Islay is different to winter on Islay.
I can imagine.
So I have the convenient excuse of I might want to live on Islay, but wife won't do it. So.
I know you'll work from.
Yeah. But my mum and dad are here full time.
Are they?
And it's a huge part of the business is the family. We are the kind of driving force behind it. My dad's here every day. Yeah. He's sort of obsessive. He's either at the distillery on Islay or he's away doing other things. But when he's here, he finds it quite hard not to be here kind of doing things. And he's a driving force, as I said, like he's a force of nature in a way, he makes decisions.
Yeah. And I think the decision-making thing's a big important thing. We recently spoke to Brian Kinsman, William Grant and Sons, also a kind of family-owned company. And he said, it's a decision-making process. It gets done so much quicker.
Yeah.
Decisions are made like that. There's not a bureaucracy. So it kind of helps the companies be a bit more agile in that kind of sense. You can react quicker. There's not that kind of bureaucracy.
I mean, you can, and it isn't always the right decision, but you can move a bit quicker. We're just a bit more nimble in general because we also have our own bottling here, which allows us to do all sorts of things that others couldn't. It's
That's a huge element being so. That's the bit that surprised me the most about coming here is number one, the size of the whole operation. It's what did he say? Size of the farm, the acres.
Well, we're about 2,000 acres.
Yeah,
2,000.
A lot of that. I mean, that's Islay bragging. Look at my big farm.
But at the same time, there's also we drove up and we saw the new warehouses being built.
Yeah.
And then right beside the warehouses that are being built, Islay's telling us, there's our sheep, there's our cattle, right? And there's a lot of contract farming that goes on, which he explained, which is that's by the by, that's fine. But then you come back and it is a relatively small distillery setup.
Yeah.
You're not getting a massive, huge production machine.
Yeah.
But then you go into an old cattle shed and you go, here's our bottling line. And you go, well, that is... I don't think we've been on a distillery tour that actually has its own bottling line.
Not on site. Extracurricular. I've visited a couple of. It was. I remember visiting Fujikatemba, and that has its own on-site bottling, which is kind of this massive hall of.
Yeah.
We started off here with teapots.
But teapots.
Yeah.
So what?
Well, to make the whiskey.
So everything.
Copper teapots or
everything is now bottled here. No, nothing as fancy as that. So everything's bottled here, and everything has been bottled here. Everything in Kilchoman
Since day one, right?
With the exception of about 4 or 5 of the very first releases.
Okay.
So the inaugural release, and then a couple of these like spring, summer, autumn releases that we did, and then the first bottling we did here was the inaugural 100% Islay.
Right.
Which is, the first bottling that we did from our own barley.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, well, to really fulfill the whole
End to
ethos. It
end.
needs to be bottled here.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any bottling equipment. So me and my brothers again, we bottled 8,000 bottles using teapots from the cafe.
So you were filling up teapots and then filling the
Well,
bottle.
first step was to vat the whiskey. I think the whiskey was actually vatted down in Bruichladdich.
Right.
We borrowed some of the vatting equipment. So they put it into IBCs, big, like,
Yeah.
palletized. And then we took it from the IBC. We cracked the tap on the IBC into a bucket. Oh no, a bin. Sorry, like a big,
Yeah, like a big.
black bin. And then,
This is
and then
stressing me out.
we scooped the whiskey out of the bin with a teapot.
Right.
And the teapot's perfect because it just has a little, like a stainless.
Oh yeah, it's got a
stainless-
lip on
it's
there.
got a little hook on the spout. So
Right.
you just hook the spout over and fill it up. So
What about like temperature and getting a hydrometer reading and making sure that like when it comes up to 20 degrees, it's consistent?
well, that was done in Bruichladdich.
Chuck, shut up.
What actually?
And then you'd have to hand label all them as well, and
Yeah, but it was at 50%, so it's pretty stable.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
but you'd be hand labeling and everything like that as well. So you'd be
Yeah. I
yes.
mean, the filling the bottles was the exciting part.
yeah. So like that's a
Hand labeling
How
was
long
the
did that take you then?
It
That
was
must have
about
been
6
How long-
weeks, I think.
6 weeks.
How long did the excitement last?
No, it was. We were a bit ashamed. Understandably, we were doing it in the old malt floor, and the tours would come around. We'd be like, put the bin away.
so has the distillery been open for tours from day one, effectively?
Yeah.
Because that is a big element of like we've.
It is, because this visitor centre is the
It's
most
pretty
popular visitor centre in Islay or something in terms of numbers, someone said to me. I
Maybe.
might be wrong.
It's a
I think somebody
five-star
said to me.
visitor centre.
Yeah, 5
But I mean, it's huge. You don't. There's an element of TARDIS.
Yeah.
Sort of, you can walk around here and it looks like an old stone building, and you'll be able to see this on the.
But it's extremely popular because, I mean, for context, my parents were visiting here on holiday a couple of months ago, and they came to the cafe here and said, "Great cafe at Kilchoman. When you come for the second week, we'll try and book it. Tried to book it, booked out for the whole week,
Really?
Yeah.
in advance. So,
And
I mean,
really good baby changing facilities.
extremely. My sister, my nephew's, well, he's coming up to 2 now. But yeah, my sister raved about the baby changing facility. She said, "I love the staves and the old casts, and that's nice."
But it's a big size. Like you walk through that door. We
Yeah.
walked through that door. We're like, bloody hell! I didn't expect this. It looks like it should just be like a kind of cottagey kind of room.
Yeah.
You walk through. It goes all the way back. There's some great views as well that look out there. But as well as that, you've got a shop, and you've absolutely rinsed us today. I'm sitting here.
Graham's head to toe. I
I'm
think,
sitting
in
there,
Kilchoman.
not toe because I didn't go for the socks.
I ring but the socks.
But I've got Kilchoman rugby shorts on. I've got a Kilchoman t-shirt which does have the Land Rover logo on it with the tour facilities. And but you didn't have the hat. But Chuck, nearly called you Ross there. Sorry, mate.
All right. No,
Don't take any offence.
all right.
But Chuck, you've got a combine harvester on your
Yeah.
t-shirt.
Right.
But when did the
Talk
visitor
about my
centre
youth.
come online?
So we've always had a visitor centre,
Right, but this one,
but much like the bottling line, it's sort of evolved
It's
and
changed.
Yeah.
over the time. So we originally, it was a long thin building down there.
Ah,
It was fine. It was what we could afford to build and everything else at the time. But now it's kind of all the bells and whistles really.
Yeah.
But it's important. Like originally it was it's a source of income.
Yeah,
You know, you can make money and I think my dad was very surprised even when, the building started and there were coots of people turning up and getting pictures before, even a shovel had gone in the ground, but also, getting people over and them seeing the place, getting a feel for it, they're fans for life.
Yeah,
and that's interesting. You mentioned how important it was in the early days. 'Cause I think we've spoken to other distilleries that have mentioned that new distilleries have talked about kind of trying to grab that tourist market, and maybe sometimes we've heard anecdotally that's not maybe been as profitable or as successful as they maybe anticipated. But for you, it seems that
well, it's not profitable.
no.
So I think, so selling bottles in your visitor centre is possible.
Yeah.
Selling cups of teas and everything else is not possible.
Yeah.
And particularly in a rural location, it's a big commitment, management of people and stock and menus and everything else, so there's a lot of stuff we do in the visitor centre that is not profitable.
Yeah.
But it gives people a nice experience and it all plays into their, their enjoyment of the dram when they get home.
It comes into that phrase we love, liquid to lips.
Well, yeah.
Getting people coming in and trying the whiskey, which they maybe wouldn't have tried before.
It's interesting hearing what you're saying about that, and it's like the commitment to it is really, really important because, and again, if you watch the vlog where Islay takes us into the field, and Chuck goes into farmer mode, and he goes, as the son of a farmer,
Okay.
he asks,
You wanted to make him aware that you had some farming background.
I just wanted some respect.
yeah. And he goes,
I've had enough therapy over what I went through. I wanted someone to just respect me for it.
and he wants Islay to know, I'm not just a cameraman, by the way.
Yeah. I'm not just bad at this job. I was bad at other jobs too. Yeah.
Well, and if you watch that vlog, every time Chuck, who's holding the camera, true to form, every time we do a distillery visit and Chuck's the cameraman, every time Chuck speaks to someone whilst holding the camera moves. Totally moves away.
Well, because I don't have a mic on me, so I have to like lean towards you while I'm holding the camera.
But the thing is, you asked about yield.
Yeah.
Spirit yield and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of just went, you're joking.
Yeah.
Like, we don't
Yield
farm this.
doesn't come into the comprehension,
There is no economic real thought process. I say there is a thought process, but there's no economic concern as such about yield and things like that because you're not selling it to anyone else. It's just you use the barley that you get.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I actually get most excited about the years where we have a terrible harvest.
Yeah,
The barley will be that much more different.
Okay.
On a good year, we aspire to, Islay's happy as Larry if he's got great big grains of barley that look just like the farmers on the East Coast, and he can go down to the cattle sale and tell everyone about how many tons he got per acre. But the whiskey will end up more similar to the barley grown on the East Coast in
Of
that Islay.
scenario.
Of Scotland.
Of Scotland, right?
This
So
is your
big-
5 barley grade.
Best place in the world. Best place in the world for barley.
So those big grains, and you compare that to years where we have really tough years, and the grains are
Well, that's it.
flat and crappy and everything else, and the whiskey is so much different and so much more, not always more interesting, but more unique as a result.
I mean, is that kind of like, what do you get differently in a bad year? I mean, in terms of flavour.
Lots of oiliness,
Yeah.
so lots of husks in the mash and lots of oiliness. Yeah, particularly, as I say, that oiler textured, really mouth coating. Kind of.
And does that make
sometimes it's a bit heavier as well. Sometimes
And that's something that's going back to that kind of traditional Islay flavour profile, that kind of oily and
I don't think
not.
you could go that, but I don't think you're ever going to really be able to replicate.
It's just
the
that-
old Islay.
But
style.
who's the master blend? Do you have a master blender here, or is it done by different blending teams, or is it is it everyone just mucks in?
So Islay heads takes care of the farming and kind of oversees everything. But in terms of production, we have Robin Bignell,
Right.
who's been here for 15 years or so, and he's very much involved in spirit quality.
So do you guys all sit back? You go, oh, Robin, it's a tough old year for you now. You're getting excited about it, going, let's see what you can do because we know what the spirit character is going to be like with this inconsistency of grain. Because that is where the job.
You're going to get a lot less cast than you expected this year.
Yeah.
Well, it's harder to germinate, but it's harder to germinate on the malt floor. It's more inconsistent. You got a lot of extra barley bits, the husks and the little shoots off the ears of the barley.
Yeah.
It all causes issues. So yeah.
And you got red deer that are eating the
deer
barley.
and everything else,
Yeah, the deer are eating the barley.
And feed to a couple of
I presume is that a seagull there?
That is a seagull.
Yeah, I've just been watching a seagull for the last 20 minutes, like it's the most kind of natural thing in the world.
That's great. I guess
that's
Seagull Stories podcast.
I know.
Save that for your bird watching podcast.
Well, Ali Yellowhammer, he would appreciate that. Yeah,
And Graham killed a pigeon on the way here as well.
yeah, let's not mention that.
By mistake.
By mistake, unintentionally.
I mean, I was trying to nap, so that's what he said.
Let me tell you this. The pigeon killed itself.
All right.
Yeah.
It flew out. I can't now put on the podcast no animals were harmed in the filming of this.
One pigeon.
One pigeon.
Yeah. One
But
pigeon
yeah.
was smushed.
Let's try the third dram on. I think moving swiftly on.
Absolutely right. Let's
So
change the
this-
subject.
This is your third. So this is, I can see from here, 18-year-olds. So we're start. This is have you released anything as old as an 18-year-old?
We have done an 18-year-old. So
You've done an 18-year-old before. So
last year we did a similar.
I know you did a
kind of
16-year-old.
We did a 16-year-old, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't tried your 18-year-old. So
this is all bourbon barrels as well. But
Brilliant.
this is from the 50 ppm. So we produced 2 distinct styles.
your 16 was unpeated, wasn't it? Or,
No, 16 was heavily
16
peated.
was heavily peated.
So this is also heavily peated, but the Rockside
20
releases
20
are all-
ppm.
Yeah, slightly lower.
By the way, I have to say, I really like the
14
Rockside, Rockside 11, which is going to be it's going to be the
it's fully off.
the Rockside ppm. The Rockside 11 will be a core release. It's 20 ppm. Really, really like that. 46%.
Yeah, it's lighter, it's more floral, it's fresher.
But that 14.
Yeah.
And what's the cask strength?
that's all
That's 50.
bourbon.
That's 50.9. Really.
all bourbon barrels and Rockside barley. It really has this elegant kind of textured, fragrant,
It's very
sweet,
buttery.
Oh, lovely.
It's got lots of like kind of pastry,
Yeah.
lemon cake kind of quality stuff.
So this 18-year-old, but from the commercial malt.
Yeah.
But again, ex-bourbon barrels. And the ABV on that one, Graham, sorry?
50, so a really good
So
drinking
again,
strength.
50%.
Yeah.
Are these all 50%? Sorry.
No, that
These are
was
all
first one
like-
50,
These are all
54.7 for the first one.
Ah, okay. So they are differential, right?
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a bit richer, isn't it?
But it is the preferable cask type for use on the distillery is bourbon, isn't
Yeah,
it? Your
because
dad,
Isla mentioned your dad was a big fan of bourbon casks in particular.
Yeah, I think he feels, bourbon casks allow for the spirit character to shine. So what makes our distillate unique is really shown off well with a bourbon barrel. Whereas with a sherry cask, it becomes more about the cask than the distillate sometimes.
But that's interesting because, I mean, my perception of Kilchoman, perhaps before coming here, and seeing your kind of lineups at kind of whiskey festivals, it's the different releases you have. You've had Sauternes, you've had a Mori cask in particular. I remember trying that at the Independent Spirit Festival in Edinburgh back in January or February, which I was a big fan of.
how was your dram?
That was my dram of the festival. So my kind of familiarity with Kilchoman was like a distillery that is putting lots of different things and trying new things, doing releases. I don't know if anyone else has done a specific Mori cask.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Has
So
Kilchoman ever done independent bottlings, or all your stock stayed within?
So we don't sell anything under the Kilchoman brand to
Right.
independent bottlers.
I don't
We
remember.
it's not necessarily like we don't see a place for independent bottlers or anything like that.
No.
It's just we've never had enough.
Keep the stock for yourself.
Yeah.
Fair.
So there's all spirit that's made here. Does it stay here, or does
We sell some
right?
bulk. I think
Yeah.
Isla came in earlier. I was like, I didn't know what the party line was, or whether we sell bulk or not. So I said no, but yeah, we do sell a bit of bulk now.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
Not under as
Unnamed
Isla single
Isla
malt.
or something
no,
like that. Yeah.
But we know like that's the one thing that we've learnt a lot about when you speak to distilleries. It's like number one, cask trading and stock trading goes on, and number two is a big part of keeping the lights on is.
Well, we've never had spare capacity.
Yeah.
So as a distillery for 18 years, we produced as much as we could from the equipment we had.
Yeah.
Over that whole period. Yeah. Now with this, slight downturn in the industry, we are producing less. We have a bit of spare capacity. So we have the guys, we have the equipment. So we're selling a bit of bulk.
Yeah, good.
And if we didn't sell it, someone else would.
Well, this is exactly it. This
it's
the business. It's not like it's. This is the funny thing is, when we did the tour at Glencadam, and they took us into the blending facility that they have up there at Glencadam, and the guy he said this is on every tour, but this is where we make a majority of our third party.
Yeah.
We do third party blending. This is where all our third party stuff goes on, and he said. This is a huge part of the industry. And he said, some people don't like talking about it, but he said, we're open and honest. This is what we'll take all our tours in here. All these big, huge vats that we have, those 3 vats over there are purely for peated. Grain vats are over here, and the rest of it, and he said, and there's cask trading that goes on, there's spirit trading goes on.
and he was saying, for example, in that vat might be a own brand supermarket blend for a different country or a different market. And you know, that is a huge part of the industry, and it does go. You know,
Without the £15 bottle,
get
you don't
mentioned.
have the £50 bottle, and you don't have the £500 bottle, and
Absolutely.
so on.
And on that front, one of the things that we always love to talk about is how much Angus loves the M&S Kilchoman
Oh
release.
yeah.
So normally when we mention it, we always have to break it and go bow up, bow up, bow.
I would say terrific value. Terrific value. The Loch.
So what is it? What is
It's
it?
a Loch Greenock.
Loch
Is
Greenock,
it
yeah.
Loch Greenock? Yeah.
Loch Greenock, it's a product we sell to M&S in the UK, and then there's a couple of French supermarkets that carry it as well.
Yeah, I think it's a terrific value.
And how big it from you know in the sales and marketing role that you have?
Yeah.
Like getting contracts like that. How big is it to be number one? Getting I suppose if M&S are taking it, it's going right across the UK. But so from a stock point of view, great. But number two, having your brand being associated on the shelf with in that.
And I
event.
think in M&S as well, you're mainly there's probably only 2 or 3
Well,
named
that's the
single
main
malts,
thing, yeah,
which is
So M&S is probably alone. That M&S account would be, you know, in our top 10 customers, you know,
Sure.
including like the US, you know, Japan, whatever, you know, so it's a really meaningful bit of business. And as a, you know, sales and marketing professional, you know, that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, all this 20-year-old, 18-year-old fancy packaging is all fine and good, but ultimately it comes down to the liquid in the bottle.
Yeah.
When it's this stuff. Whereas, you know, we're a size now, and we're ambitious. You know, we want to keep on growing. Where that stuff is much more important. You know, winning tenders in Sweden and you know, developing that kind of supermarket business, for want of a better word, is what means we'll either continue to grow or we'll stay where we are.
Well, what you have to like, this is the bit we become spoiled, and there'll be people who listen to the podcast. We've got a variation of people who listen to the podcast at different points of whiskey drinkerism, right? And you look at it and you go, well, yes, we might buy our whiskey from Royal Mile Whiskies or from a bespoke whiskey shop, right? Or there'll be people who have across America, like Scott Moore, for example, who's our American, not our only American listener, but he's our American brand ambassador. And Scott will look for dedicated liquor stores that specialise in Scotch whiskey like that. But what you also have to remember is the majority of whiskey that's purchased in the UK will come from supermarkets.
Yeah.
And a large part of that consumerism is price point.
Yeah.
And if you can suddenly say we can put good whiskey on the shelf at a very good price, it will make that consumer suddenly go, if it's on special offer, if I've got the club card, if I get points, or if I get a discount on that, there's a chance that is the entry point for somebody. And there'll be people who probably have bought and are drinking Kilchoman. You go, never bloody heard of the place, don't have a clue about them, but their whiskey was on the shelf at this price, and actually it was bloody good.
And it's also where Islay comes in, you know, because we wouldn't be on the shelves in M&S if we weren't from Islay, you know. So it's
Islay itself is the selling point.
Well, the distillery manager or the boy.
like a lot of selling booze is like you have to fall into a category.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to be a single malt, and we have to have 5 single malts on our shelves, and we have to have 2 from Speyside, 1 from Islands, one from Islay, 2 from Islas, whatever else. So you have to kind of, and if you don't fall into those categories, you're automatically kind of discounted from the conversation sometimes. So being from Islay is just a huge part of,
and that's it.
And it's almost a benefit to you to then kind of be unashamedly that thing. I mean, we talk about sometimes some distilleries, it's like, well, we don't want to be categorized. We're not this, we're not that, you know. And if you are from Islay, you know, I mean, why wouldn't you kind of put that right at the forefront?
Well, it goes back to what you're saying. You know Lagavulin, you know them, we're from there too, right? And then we'll go, oh bloody hell! Like,
but I would argue that Kilchoman's kind of unique in a sense that it is heavily peated, but it is also approachable. It's like, and it is probably to do with your skills.
Jesus, have you got a sales marketing job?
I'm a label guy.
You're right. Puts the stickers on the bottles.
I'm just a sticker guy. But you know, you do have a light floral characteristic, but it is heavily peated. Also, I do want to say this is fucking fantastic.
Yeah, it's nice. There's a real like nutty quality on the finish.
Yeah, well, I think there's lots of sweetness to it. It's not got that butteriness, but heavily
It's
peated.
fruity. It's juicy.
But really like boiled sweets, lots of like American candy vibes. It's great.
And these are
You know what that is? exactly what my father intended with the spirit of Kiln. So he wanted something that was unashamedly Islay, peaty, appeals to the Islay whiskey fan, but has a different take on it. And and I think that's what a lot of people like about our whiskey. It's present when it's a bit older, but also when it's young, it has that kind of vibrant, smoky, citrus sweet kind of side to it, which is just a bit different from.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. There's no point trying to replicate Lafroig because Lafroig are doing Lafroig. There's no point trying to be another Lafroig.
And this is higher. Am I right in saying this is higher ppm than the last? Than the
50 and that was 20.
Yeah. So you get the smoke. Yeah. And answering this, and you might not be able to answer this question as well as maybe your dad would be. And I don't know how honest you can be on a question like this.
Get lulled into a false sense of security when there's people around.
But what I want to know is how
Yeah.
welcoming were the other distilleries on the island?
I get asked this question all the time.
Yeah.
And on its most welcoming you can imagine, with a pinch of sort of skepticism.
Yeah.
But you got to understand that. A bit like that guy who came up earlier, who was looking for screws. Yeah. He's half here just to have a poke around and have a chat.
So for context, right? This is, Friday afternoon, 2:00, 2:30 in the afternoon, and a car just pops up, and it's a
farmer from Bemore, and he's looking for a very specific type of screw. But actually, he wanted to just go up and have a look at our new sheds.
Is that right? Right. Okay. All right, but so that,
and he wanted to have a poker and speak to Islay and see what's going on.
Just get a wee bit of what's going on around here.
So people from Islay are the most welcoming, open, chatty, like all Scots generally.
So just real farmer crack.
I need a couple of these screws.
I've got nothing going on today, and I haven't spoken to anyone. What's going on with you, man? Yeah,
but
they were very welcoming, and people from Bowmore came up and told us that we were doing our maltings all wrong, and
really,
and we
was this before or after the fire?
Yeah, more coal. This will get them.
But we used to go down. Me and my dad used to go down. We bottle. Brookladdie would let us use their miniature bottling line, and me and my dad would go down there and bottle off 100.
Have a good poke around as well and see what Brookladdie are up to.
Because still we borrow. If we were out of yeast, we will call the guys and say, "Have you got any yeast? You got a spare of this or that?" It's very, very collaborative. If anyone has ever lived in a rural community, you can't be any other way.
Well, there's the two ways that you could look at it, right? And obviously you've answered that question perfectly, and that'll go consistently with what Islay, your distillery manager, said earlier on as well. Is you can sometimes look at a rural community and go, they can be very closed, in the sense of, and suddenly you go, who's this? We've got some guy some Englishman's come up with this idea that he's going to build the first new distillery in Ireland over 100 years. This will be let's sit back and watch. With, like you said, probably a degree of skepticism, but at the same time, we speak to Islay, your distillery manager, a man who's named after his dad, who's named after the island, but he's born and raised on this island. And when you heard him speaking as passionately about the importance of, we've always had it on this podcast where people have said, because when we approached whiskey, when we first started this, the collaborativeness and the element of no sharp elbows, as we've said in the industry, and everyone will tell you it's whiskey first, right? And as long as the category of whiskey is doing well, then everyone will find their place in Scotch whiskey in particular. Everyone will find their place. But here it's almost like there's whiskey first, then it's Islay, and then it's because if whiskey's doing well, it brings everybody to the island.
Yeah. But almost to kind of reverse that question, Graham, we talked a lot about you being a new distillery, but you've been here a long time now and you've been doing things in a particular way. Is there an element where you kind of see yourself as we're doing Islay or the Barley releases? Why aren't Lafroig doing Islay Barley releases? Why aren't Colilla doing Islay Barley releases? Is that almost a kind of, well, now we are where we are we kind of looking at these other distilleries thinking, well, we're setting an example here, or is it not?
There's
like
a place
that
for
at all?
everyone.
Yeah.
I think variety is the big strength of Scotch whisky. There's no other spirit on the shelves that has the variety of Scotch whisky, and so people doing things a bit differently is only going to strengthen, everyone.
Yeah.
So, I think this is a sharp elbow thing. It comes down to the sales and marketing people, the people off the island.
Yeah.
You go to America, and
Once
the
it's
odd
on the
sales team don't want to talk to the Lafroig sales team and everything else, but here it's very different. Although my dad, when he first came here, he would wind people up by saying, "I've come here to teach you how to make." It takes an Englishman.
How did that go down?
Yeah.
How did that go down?
It took a while for them to catch on to a sense of humour. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I just think, yeah, like when you see someone like Islay, your distillery manager and farm manager, am I right in saying this?
He does everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't like he's not a control freak, but he likes to be sure he knows what's going on everywhere.
Yeah, but when you hear him speaking so passionately about what whiskey does, and he openly said, so his old man, his dad, Islay Senior, worked at Lagavulin for over 30 years, and he said, like, back then, you know, unemployment rates on the island were poor. People that even just local community on the island was really poor. People had to leave the island to get jobs.
I mean, he was talking about the worst, like late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. And he said whiskey was the dead man's shoes. That's what he said. You had to wait. You had to wait until somebody literally died at a distillery before you got a job, because there was only so many on. And you like, how many people are actually working on site here for Kilchoman right now?
Well, we got about it'll be about 40, might be 35 to 40.
Yeah, and you'll get seasonal workers coming out during
So
season.
Yeah. But that's one of the big sources of pride, I think, for my mum in particular. You know, seeing her, I remember her dad. You know, my grandfather being here and being on sort of these committees about trying to keep people on the island and how we can create jobs and everything else. And we've got 35, 40 people here, and a good chunk of them are under 40, you know, and that's great. You know, they've got, and it's good. It's well-paid jobs. It's not, you know, there's obviously like, you know, lesser well-paid jobs, but you know, there are prospects.
Yeah.
And
because he talked about, was it Kilchoman Church? That's just
Yeah,
across there.
there.
He said it was the last sermon ever done there was in the 70s.
Yeah.
But he also said that at one point it had a parish of like 4,000 people.
I can't remember what the peak population was in Islay, but it was well into the kind of, you know, it was tens of thousands. And now it's 3,000. But that's, I mean, reflective of the islands in general.
Of course, you know. But at the same time, that 3,000 is probably an increase of quite a considerable amount over the last 30 years.
Well, it's stopped the decline.
Yeah,
you know, it was the decline for a long time, and now it's much more stable. The visitors have equal, you know, so the whiskey, there were jobs in the whiskey, and then the whiskey, the success of Islay whiskey brought the visitors, which brought the jobs in the visitor centres and
that's
the hotels and everything.
And even things like the little shop that we went to today to buy our food for,
you
know, it all adds up, doesn't it? Everything like that, and that's where we've heard people talking. You've touched on it, and we don't want to touch on it too much because we've had a great time and things like that. But the industry is going through a hard place, and it's not just the distilleries that feel it, it goes all the way through, because you suddenly look at it and you go, well, if the distilleries are struggling, they're not buying malt, and if they're not buying malt, the maltsters aren't buying barley. If they're not buying barley, the farmers aren't growing. But then on the other side, if distilleries, you know, stop opening visitor centres and it stops people coming, and that has a knock-on effect. But then if that was on a place like Islay or a smaller community, then that means that the shop down the road that everyone stops to get a bottle of water or a tin of juice, or the cafe that everyone goes to for a coffee and a bite to eat, it all has that impact. And having that, but Islay has this magic where people from all over the world will travel to Islay to experience it.
And I think this sort of downtime, I consider it like a consolidation, because we had that sort of initial shock, but we're now building back, and it's on feels much more sustainable.
And I think when we're talking about people coming to Islay, visiting the distilleries, Fagile as well.
We had record numbers.
Record numbers.
And so that downturn, I think, is more isolated to the distillers, and you know, there's no lack of quality products on the shelf, and no lack of people attending shows and tastings and everything else.
And we were talking a little bit earlier, I mentioned that I'd been at the Lagavulin day, and obviously you're on site, but the distillery is itself, you can't put your head round, ask for a bag of screws. But at Kilchoman, the kind of warehouse is open, and it just seems like a more, I'm not saying it's any less inviting, but it sounds like a more inviting environment on the Kilchoman day.
The doors are open.
The doors are
I think
more
in the
open.
defence of the other distilleries, you know, they're probably just not told they can't do it. You know what I mean? Someone higher up has said, "Oh no, what if someone trips or something?"
Yes.
So we throw our doors open. People can go in, and all the production guys are all around about, pouring drams and talking, because ultimately that's the experience people want. They don't want the sort of information board.
No,
they want to meet the people, and and get a much better feel for the place. So
Yeah.
that's what we try and do.
But I went to a whiskey tasting in Mumbai.
Okay.
I was current wife's an Indian lady, national. But basically, my wife is Indian. my wife is Indian.
Yeah.
We got there in the end.
Yeah, we got there. She knows that, right? And I know that. But we were visiting, and I got in tow with a group of guys who were hosting a whiskey tasting in Mumbai, and it was an hour's flight. I thought, it'll be a bit of fun. Let's go and see what an Indian whiskey tasting is like. Yeah.
An hour's flight from Bangalore.
An hour's flight from
Mumbai, we
Bangalore,
should say.
yes. So not, but 3 sherries, 10 drams on the lineup, 50 people in the room.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was a big night.
Aye.
3 sherries and then 10.
Yes, 3 cherries and then 10 drams. That was it was the Sherry Symphony, and it was a mix of, there was all the core brands, and there was a mix of Indian whiskey and Scotch that were on there. But what was fascinating was you're speaking to these guys afterwards who are like whiskey obsessive, right? And when you go to a country like India and you see people obsessing over it, and these guys were saying, and now the joke was, the organizer of the event sort of invited me along to it, went along, but the joke was that Graham's flown in for this, right? So these guys, there was people who genuinely believed that I'd flown all the way from Scotland to Mumbai for this tasting. And what then they couldn't understand afterwards, when we're having a few drams and we were chatting away about whiskey, and you were getting, there was people in that room who had the knowledge and understanding of whiskey being, so what you're telling me is the darker the whiskey doesn't mean the better quality of it. But then there was other people in the room who were actually blind tasting whiskies and able to identify what they were. And there was some of these guys that we're speaking to, they come to Islay once a year. A group of 12 guys will fly from India to Scotland and visit Islay once a year, every single year. And what they couldn't get round is that in their head, I'd flown all the way to Mumbai for a whiskey tasting, but I'd never been to Islay. But it is, and what
To be fair, I flew all the way to Japan twice.
Yeah.
Before, one for a whiskey festival in Japan before I came to Ireland.
But we're here now. We've literally got off the ferry and we've driven up to Kilchoman.
Yeah.
And what I understand from the location that we are is, I mean, Islay's a big old island. People forget that it's not a place that you can't just go, we'll go to Kilchoman and we'll walk to Lagavulin and then we'll pop into Bowmore.
It's the cyclists. They turn up and they think, oh, well, I'll cycle from Kilchoman to Ardegh now. And there you wait.
Really? But the point of the matter is that what I'm really looking forward to for the next couple of days, and what I'm already starting to feel, is that there is something special about Islay. There is something different about this place. There is something unique. There is something. Now, it's not just a case of, there's this tiny little island on the west coast of Scotland that has all these distilleries on it. There's a reason for it. It wasn't just a case of someone said, pick Islay and just build them all here. There is something. What would you say that is special? You've grown up here on the island, coming, and you go between the island and the mainland. What do you think so special and unique about this place?
I think it's a bit like what you're saying about Islay. Whiskey here is a generational thing that's always been part of the part of daily life on Islay. So you can speak to virtually anyone, and their family either currently work in a distillery or did work in a distillery, and they feel massively emotionally tied to these places, and they take a huge amount of pride, I think, when they see people coming to the island and when they go on holiday and they see bottles of Islay whiskey behind the bar. So I think it's the pride people take, and they love to talk to you about it. So you'll hear from Aaron, and what's your favourite Islay, and do you have it on the bar at your local and everything else. It's very much a source of pride for the people of Islay.
Do you feel that for Glenkinchie? Like you both grew up. That'd be your local distillery. You couldn't see it from your bedroom windows like Ali Baxter.
No, I don't think we could possibly have the same level of connection with that distillery as the Islay.
I mean,
the Elacs do with the Islay.
My dad told me as a kid that we would have sold barley that would have gone into production for Glenkinchie from our farm.
But if you saw if you were in Japan, right, or across the world, in Australia or something, you saw Glenkinchie on the back bar, would you be more? Would you be drawn to?
To be fair,
when
I was in Melbourne, I saw a Glenkinchie private bottling, and I emailed George Keeble and was like, "Hey, do you have any casks? I would really like to buy one from a specific year." And he was just like, "No." And that was that dream gone. But I like. I have a soft spot for Glenkinchie,
Sure, I do
Um,
too.
Yeah.
but I've been burnt way more times than I've been like.
Yeah.
It's like,
But what,
dude,
but what I would also say about
I'm
Islay,
more into Little Mill.
yeah, what I would also say about Islay is, I've spoken to people that I encounter maybe at work or whatever, and I say, oh, I'm going to Islay, and they go, oh, Islay, oh, whiskey, then.
Yeah.
And it's like, right,
Yeah.
but my mum doesn't drink at all.
Yeah, you don't get that when you
And-
say I'm going to East Lothian.
Yeah, my mum doesn't.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, my mum doesn't drink at all, and she visited Islay on holiday for the first time about 2 months ago, and it was like I was speaking about going to. Oh, it's fantastic, Islay, lovely beaches, the scenery, the wildlife.
Yeah.
There is not to play the whiskey down, but there's so much more to Islay beyond the whiskey. It's a fantastic place to visit, even if you're not interested in whiskey. But the whiskey is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
right.
I think like sense of we've talked about it, and
Oh, are we going to mention the T word?
well, yeah,
Terroir.
terroir, because well, also we've talked about Flora Outram
Yeah.
from Old Pulteney. Flora Outram, she studied heritage,
Okay.
and she talked about how the difference between heritage and history, and the sense of belonging with heritage, where basically your family heritage, and that's what actually initially attracted her into whiskey. Is
Okay.
she is from England, but she moved up to Scotland with her family to Speyside, and suddenly just speaking to people in the local pub
Yeah.
that are like, I'm from here and I belong to this,
Yeah.
and this is who we are, and this is a huge part of our identity. And then
After taking all those people from Speyside, you thought whiskey from Wick is the answer.
but I think that element, I'll go back to sense of pride as place. I'm delighted. I love Inchdairney now, because Inchdairney is technically my closest distillery, albeit it's in Glenrothes and I grew up in Kirkcaldy. But I'm
It's
still,
unashamedly Fife.
that's it, and I'm so proud of that element. And it's like that. I do love that fact, and I feel like, am I just jumping onto it for the sake of jumping onto it, or is it just the fact that no, you know what? I love whiskey, and I love whiskey now that's being made where I'm from technically, and I'll shout
It's like
about
a
that.
band comes from your
Yeah.
town or whatever. Anything
Well,
that's
this is
known
it.
around the world,
But
that's
unlike
very-
Fife, Islay is already a whiskey region.
Well, that is, by the way, we'll working on that. But sense of place and the T word, which we've had so many mixed reviews about, terroir.
People have different opinions about it.
Yeah.
You both said it.
Yeah, exactly.
Terroir.
Terroir.
In fact, whilst we're having that, we're on the
Yes.
last dram of this.
Let's try the final bottle on the table. So this, again, it's ex-bourbon barrels. This is 20 years old. This has got another
So this must be the oldest one of the
This is the oldest sort of like it's not the oldest whiskey we've released, because we've released we have periodically taken bottles out of cask number 1 and auctioned them for charity and stuff like that. So it's not
Right.
the oldest bottle of Kilchoman that we've sold, but this is the oldest release.
Yeah.
You know.
So that's great, because on the YouTube video I can put the oldest Kilchoman release
Yeah.
that we'll tried. Yeah. There we go.
So this is the same
that
as
to
the
you.
18-year-old, but 2 years older essentially.
I see.
You know, so it's bourbon barrels, but you know, these pockets of barrels, this would have been. So, there was a period early in the.
Graham's on
in
his
the-
ASMR.
You start sort of.
We've actually had complaints about that.
glug.
We've
We
had
have
some
had- we have had
complaints.
complaints.
I
We have had
I don't
complaints.
like listening to them slurping whiskey.
No, but in the early years, very early years, we bought bourbon barrels from a mixture of sources.
Yeah.
And then since about 2007, 2008, we bought only from
Buffalo Trace.
Buffalo Trace. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the difference between the 18-year-old and 20-year-old might be more accentuated
Because different sources of
yeah.
barrels.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's the same ppm as well.
Go home in
50
20-year-old.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and this is sitting at 49.9%.
And a lovely drinking strength as
which is a
well.
lovely drinking strength.
So this was peak. The sons of the owner like really fucking about when they were working.
This is the real bad years. For that.
Right, terroir.
Right. Sorry. Yes.
Terroir.
Do you lean into it?
What are you? No, not really.
Right.
I mean, I don't talk about terroir. I'd never bring it up.
Right, because it's
Because some distilleries do, some distilleries don't.
So the issue I have is with it. It just like my first when you brought it up, I was like, well, what do you mean by terroir?
Yeah. Okay.
Because terroir to some people is the barley.
Yeah.
And other people.
But it's other people, it's other things.
It's more a kind of ethereal thing, right?
Yeah. If you talk about whiskey from Islay tasting like it's from Islay.
Yeah.
It's about the peat,
Mm.
because the barley variety is an impact, but it's a much lesser impact than it is
Because
than the peat is.
the question I would have on that, if I was to take my Iron Fish Distillery hat off and put my cynical whiskey drinker hat on, my question would be to everybody on Islay is how much of the barley, like how much barley can actually be grown on Islay, and with like what you've just said, with the difficulties that Islay actually has with the harvesting, how much whiskey that is made on Islay is made with Islay barley?
Well, about 1%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you start talking about terroir and sense of flavour and taste, now what you've quite rightly said is that people will say terroir for Islay is smoke, right?
I would
but
say, but
does
I
that
would- I
that
would say
takes away
if
terroir?
you speak to a lot of consumers who don't know a lot about whiskey production, they would say that the smoke for the whiskey on Islay comes from the water.
Right. Well, no. So when I say peat, I mean the specific peat that is here,
Because we
that
know-
it
we-
is soaked in the Atlantic.
We also know not every Islay distillery is A, peating their whiskey, and B, if they're using peated malt, it's not always from peat that's from Islay itself, which is,
But I am saying
I wouldn't
that-
say it's disingenuous, but it maybe is, the uninitiated wouldn't realise that. But I mean,
Oh,
your
a year
peat-
ago I wouldn't have known
no,
that.
and your peat, maybe we haven't talked about it. Have you got a specific source for your peat? Is it all come from the same place?
for our Rockside
Yeah.
releases, we cut our own peat.
Yeah.
How did you get
A
access?
commercial license, you say?
Yeah.
You're not doing it on the sly. I wouldn't have thought so.
They're not giving those out anymore.
I like the fact you had to state that.
And for the commercial malt that we buy, we cut peat. Well, we don't. A contractor cuts peat on Islay and is sent to them.
Yeah.
the malt.
Because I mean, it's things like, we talk about it where people will say, we mentioned earlier on about regions and stuff like that, and people will say, "Oh, you get smoky whiskey from Islay, you get fruity and sherry whiskey from Speyside, and you get
Honeyed whiskey
honey
from
from
the
the Highlands."
Highlands.
Very generic, like.
And then you go, "Well, have you tried Buna 12?" Right, and then you go, "And have you tried Benromach 15 or Benromach 10?" And then you go, and you can move around, and you start to say, "Yeah," and you go, all these things are different, but at the same time, when I suppose from your perspective with Rockside, actually being able to have that boom, 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 barley from Islay,
Peat from Islay.
peat from Islay, distilled, bottled, and sent away from Islay.
Yeah.
Everything's 100% done here.
Yeah.
And that must be a huge, to be able to say that you can do that must be huge.
Yeah. My dad wasn't happy with a £55 price point when I said we.
So is it- really?
What the fuck? We can't sell
I mean, I was shocked, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, Maccabee's £49 in the shop.
Yeah.
Six
No,
quid.
well, that's kind of representative of the adjustment in the industry.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so I
right,
say,
yeah.
well, we can charge more for it. That we wouldn't. You know, you're going to have a lot of casks in the warehouse, and you either want to sell it or you want to,
That's so fair.
stockpile it. So
Yeah.
James, that's fantastic. Well, we are fast approaching the time of our episodes where we do ask our guests. By the way, first of all, 20-year-old whiskey, what would you think?
No bad.
Fucking fantastic.
Well, look, lads, cheers.
cheers.
Cheers. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for
letting
your
us taste all
hospitality.
these.
Awesome.
No, you've
Thanks
been
for
very
letting us
kind.
stay in that lovely cottage, by the way. I would say we had to have a fight over the bedrooms, it was the bathrooms with the view, because
It's a really good bath.
a poo with a view is basically what we were looking for tomorrow
Yeah.
morning. It's going to be cracking. But look, we are fast approaching. We are
Move
fast
on from
approaching.
that,
Your
please.
what 3 drams? Any 3 whiskies that have sort of a story, an association, or anything like that, we will let you have one on brand.
Yeah. Well, I'll go with
Or
the-
you can go all 3 on brand.
Yeah.
You've given us full access to the distillery, but we do like to hear what other people.
So,
So you can do whatever.
do you want my on-brand one first, or you want it?
You
last?
pick
Go on,
whichever.
go-
Okay,
yeah.
So I think, well, I go on brand first because it's the one I mentioned earlier. It's the inaugural 100% Islay. You know, I bottled it with friggin' teapots myself. I stuck on you times 3 labels by 8,000 and it's a lot. And so I did all that, and so it's quite nostalgic to see that, and I enjoy it.
Do you still have any? Sorry. Do you still have any bottles of it around the house?
Yeah,
do you ever kind of open it and it brings you back to the time you were
I just look at it.
Yeah, you look at it.
I go and I swear at it.
The wonky label, does that?
Yeah, well, I
Break
often
a
tell
teapot
people,
in front of it.
You can't tell it's hand labeled unless it's a bit wonky. So
Yeah, exactly. That's
Exactly, yeah.
Don't I know it? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Chuck wrote the book, yeah.
and then so when I first started going out and being a brand ambassador or whatever,
Wait a minute.
I was way out of my depth, and so there's a guy called Stuart Buchanan, and who works with Glendronach.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I spent many an evening with Stuart Buchanan, and he's a very, very warm character. Yeah, very representative of the industry, and the openness, and proper hand on the shoulder. Don't worry about this. You could do a tasting for 65 people. Just tell them, tell me the son of the founder and all you get. And he always had.
Helps if you are the son of the founder.
Incidentally, that's what we said when James. Like, I don't think I could do the podcast, but that's it. I just tell you, the son of the founder.
Well, the thing is, the dad's very good at delegating.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
So I always remember these Glendronachs that, these single cask Glendronachs, they were like, these sort of 16, 18, 20, 22-year-old single cask, and they were just stunning. I never thought we'd be able to make anything half as good as that.
Yeah.
And so I always remember having a drink with him, and he would sort of pretend that we were doing something similar. He'd go, "Oh, how do you get that?" Come on. But I like them. And then Kalila is I'm not talking. So I don't have a specific Kalila, but I always think Kalila. I really enjoy Kalila, but everyone sort of looks at it as slightly down their nose.
Yeah, and I think maybe the proliferation of kind of independently bottled Kalila.
Yeah.
It's so available.
Yeah.
It's really kind of readily available.
Yeah.
And I'm like you. I'm a big fan of Kalila. There's something about I don't know if you get the same thing. There's a kind of ashy,
I just
embery thing about it that I really love.
Bacon, the
Smoky bacon, yeah.
And it's just
Kalila
got a
18.
nice,
It's just a cracker.
yeah. It's got a lovely combination. The peat's not overwhelming, and it's just got a lovely, nice. I think it's quite unique in a way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with
yeah.
you. 100%. Yeah.
So I always enjoy a Kalila.
Yeah.
And I don't want to big up any of the big heavy repeated islanders.
No.
Those bastards are doing fine.
They don't need it.
Yeah.
But James, that's been absolutely fantastic. Honestly, what we've had, what a day, guys. We've
We've done all
to
right.
think where we were. In fact, you know what? At
shocked
7:15 this morning, where we were.
Well, I was going to say, to think where I was at about midnight.
Yeah,
last
exactly.
night,
Yeah,
we've done all right.
It was great. I have to say, I've said I woke up with a little bit of a hangover this morning. I looked at a bottle last night in my house, and I saw that I had a tiny little drop left of the Whisky Craft Bowmore 22, Sonny Charles.
Yeah.
Whisky Craft Bowmore 22,
Labeled by me.
labelled by Charles Kerr.
And if I'm going to claim any credit as well, when I visited Islay a couple of months ago, I went to
It's his
Bowmore. I did the warehouse tasting, and they had a 20-year-old ex-refill bourbon single cask, and I got a kind of 100 ml sample of this.
Yeah.
Took this onto the pod with Graham, and I
It's
mean,
triggered a
I said you might,
whiskey and bourbon, and I have to say,
I'm always quite worried about taking whiskey onto the podcast, but I poured it for Graham, and he went,
Well, what I'll say is, like, so
you know what?
peated whiskey and bourbon. There's
Yeah.
something about it that I really
Yeah.
love. That 14. How much would that 14 cost roughly? Well, do you know? Sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Man. Right. We'll put the prices up, but I would say that's a cracking bottle. But basically, Sonny had a little bit of whiskey left. He kindly donated it to one of my whiskey tastings that I did for the Dramming.
Mm-hmm.
I put that out, and it was the dram of the day for everybody on that Dramming. And I had what I thought was going to be 2 drams worth left in the bottle, right? But they had one of these thick bottoms on the bottle, and but I didn't appreciate just how much. There was 3 very healthy measures of Bowmore 22,
nice.
cast strength
Yeah, that's
Bowmore
great.
22 that I had last night. Between 5 o'clock and 7:30, right? Woke up.
That's all right.
Yeah, totally fine. But
Yeah.
it was 3.
I fell asleep at 4:30 this morning.
Aye, but what I would say is it was 3 chunky measures of it. So this morning when I woke up, my alarm went off at 4:20 this morning. My alarm went off, and I went, "Ooh!" Like I maybe need a glass of water here. But what a day we've had, guys.
Yeah.
This is only day one, right?
It won't be dark until 10 either. So
I know we're going to run back through that field, but the Rockside, I'm really excited for the Rockside whiskey. That, like I say, this family cask release, I would say for me, pick of them. The 20 is lovely. You can't argue with 20-year-old whiskey, and when it's one of the oldest whiskies that the distillery's ever released, absolutely fantastic. 18, fine, but that 14-year-old,
14 is very
14
special.
really.
I would agree.
I would say
I really
that.
love the 18.
Yeah,
Personally.
Yeah, 18 is great.
I love all.
but what about that Macarbay that we had? Cask strength.
Yeah.
That's worryingly.
And you know, even,
Looking over Macarbay, is it Macarbay?
Yeah.
But honourable mention, because I feel like you've glossed over it. The 11-year-old, when we're talking about Sinead and the peat and sherry combination.
Well,
that is
what I would say about the Macarbay, which we'd had I mean, Islay, your distillery manager, very, very healthy measures that he was pouring.
Yeah.
And
I kept on asking for less.
Yeah, very healthy measures, very hospitable.
almost as generous as myself.
But aye, exactly. But what I would say is that the Rockside was lovely, and we were drinking that in the field, looking over the barley. And long field it was called, because it's a long field, which is really appropriately named.
Did you ask why?
Yeah, no, he told us long field, but basically, standing in a field of barley, drinking whiskey that has been made using 100% of that barley from there was fantastic. But then he took us down to Macarbay, and it was a cask strength, 58%.
Yeah.
Right, which maybe, I mean, I don't know how this will sound in the edit, right? But
I'm concerned.
generous pours again, looking over Macarbay. But was that 80% and 20%? Is it 80% bourbon and
20%?
See that tiny little extra bit of sherry?
Yeah.
Just really added onto that. I loved it. But look, thank you very much for your hospitality. Thank you for looking after us. Thank you for the drams.
Thanks for putting up with us.
And honestly, absolutely fantastic.
Thanks for the chocolate cake.
What I will say is there are still tickets available, potentially, because they've sold very, very quickly, for the Not Another Whiskey Stories podcast Smackdown on the 6th of August. Apparently there is another whiskey podcast. I didn't know about it, but there's two guys, two older boys. I don't know who they are, to be perfectly honest with you, that have worked in the industry a wee bit. It's the new kids on the block versus the old boys of the industry.
Which
at Uno Mas, at Uno Mas on the 6th of August. 6 drams plus I've got some breaking news for you. It's going to be hosted, MC and hosted by Mark Thompson.
Oh.
Mark Thompson will be hosting and MCing it, and as well as that, you're going to get a welcome dram from Inchtairney, Rylaw. Welcome. It's going to be a cocktail that's going to be made up by the good folks at Uno Mas Bar. That's going to be something to look forward to. Tickets are only 20 quid, right? Look, Daz Haldane and Mitch are going to be putting up 3 drams. We've got to try and come up with 3 drams to combat with them. That's 6 drams you're going to get, plus a welcome dram, plus all the entertainment, and you're going to get to look at Mark Thompson for the night. That's value for money.
£20 just to do that, Graham.
For 20 quid, and it's all going to charity. The Ben, who help with Scottish hospitality and bar trade. Value for money, absolutely fantastic. Anyway, James, thank you so much for having us. Thank you very much for the drams. It's been absolutely fantastic. Chuck, stick to the water for the rest of the night. You've been listening to the Whiskey Stories podcast outside Kilchoman. Way!